having talked about the data story for a bit here, we now want to talk about compliance in practice and just what are some different strategies and tactics that we see our clients using, and how are we recommending that folks tackle this challenge of governing and securing your data. So one of the first things is just to reiterate that the AI potential is very high, but internal trust can be a barrier. So internal trust is when we're thinking about the teams that are responsible for the data, but also the teams that are consuming the data. And so if I am a user of Copilot, for example, and I'm getting results when I interface with Copilot that I know aren't accurate because the data that's supporting that is not accurate, then I'm going to lose trust in AI altogether, and I'm not going to be an adopter of the tools. We also want to think of this in the context of being able to provide secure data from like an InfoSec standpoint, like those teams would feel that this is a good use of the data to enable the business and to drive these positive outcomes. So we need confidence in how the AI works, and adoption of those AI outcomes and tools and workloads really depends on transparency, good controls around the data, and a secure deployment. So another survey question that we put out there was, what's your biggest concern about AI adoption? And right at the top of the list is the unclear ROI and the business impact of the AI. But then shortly behind it was regulatory compliance and data security risks. And we know that's a concern across most firms. In fact, probably all firms are really just wanting to make sure that whatever data is made available for these use cases is properly governed and properly secured. And so when it comes to how do we roll out these net new use cases for our data, we talk about the reality of the need for change management. And what I think is really interesting on this particular slide is that statistic at the bottom that 67% of business solution failures are not due to technology issues. They're due to a change management process and wanting to enable our users, because what you're passionate about as forum members is how do you enable better outcomes and better uses of data for your constituents, for the folks that are using CRM, for the folks that are completing RFP responses and things of that nature. And so when we drive to these better uses of the data, we need to enable them to be able to do so successfully. And there are a few stats here just on the high cost of ignoring change management and what some of the challenges can be if we're not being practical when it comes to implementing these different use cases. So what is the opportunity? And we like to use the term opportunity when we're talking about the foundation of AI governance, because it is what is going to launch all of these other positive, valuable outcomes. It's an opportunity, first of all, to establish that governance through perhaps a small AI council. Some of you may be members of a council of that nature that is being tasked with how to best use AI to develop use cases, to identify the risk and reward levels that go along with those use cases so that you can start to build a roadmap of how to roll those things out. Another element of this is just setting up simple do's and don'ts in your guardrails and what kind of information should be available and what kind of information needs to be protected and kept back. And then piloting first. So learning and building trust in the way that the team is going to function and in the use cases that are going to be rolled out. We are big believers in learning quickly, moving as rapidly as possible. And then Mike mentioned this, for instance, using existing tools for access and oversight. So talking about, in the case of a Microsoft ecosystem, what are the tools that you're already leveraging? If you're a Salesforce shop, what are the different tools that are available within Salesforce to secure your data and to build a strong foundation? Mike, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, when it comes to the finding those opportunities to pilot low risk, high impact use cases, we've been hearing a tremendous amount of them. And it really is oftentimes the smallest things provide the biggest impact. So in order to latch onto those, really it's just having discussions with your end users and finding out where their pain is, and then configuring an agent to address that particular pain point. And then it can scale and build from there because these agents can now talk to each other and communicate, right? So really, you'll see huge impact by focusing on and building trust and reliance by taking this approach.
So then the next thing that we like to focus on when it comes to developing the opportunity or seizing the opportunity for impacting your data consumers is around improving adoption. We touched on this with change management a little bit, but just what are some of the everyday AI basics that all different roles can start to adopt? What can they take on? Offering generative AI 101 and responsible AI 101 type courses. Microsoft has courses like that are available. There's certainly a variety of those out in the market, but as you roll out new data use cases to your users, educate them on the need to be responsible with the data that's being made available to them. Nominating power user champions on each team. That's another way to gain and solicit good feedback on how things are going when the data is being made available. Is the data that's being provided sufficient for them to achieve the different goals and objectives that they have for these different use cases? And then we just find that sharing quick wins and repeating what works, having a sort of a community built around the use of AI and the use of different data use cases really can help to drive and accelerate those adoption goals that we all have. And then finally, delivering high value use cases and really focusing on the low risk and high impact to start. That's where the quick wins can be, proving that value quickly and then scaling what works, as Mike really alluded to just a moment ago. This is a basic example, depending on where you're at in the maturity scale, but launching a secure Copilot or support help bot that can solve for very basic tasks, whether that's searching through documents or taking care of different tasks related to contact records and CRM, whatever the right opportunity is that's going to drive a large impact within the organization. That's a great place to start. And then as we think about compliance and governance of data, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about a center of excellence. And we talked about this in the context of an AI pilot group, but really expanding that out and putting something formal together that is going to be able to provide clear and consistent guidance to the organization when it comes to the security requirements and the needs that are there to govern data properly. So these and the four pillars that we talk about when we help stand up a center of excellence with our clients would be around ethics and compliance, bias and fairness mitigation, data privacy and security, of course, and then transparency and accountability. One more bit of survey results that we wanted to share is how confident are you that your firm's current data governance strategy is AI ready? And you could see that nobody was very confident, which was interesting. There was a number of respondents that said they're somewhat confident, some governance measures, but gaps remain. And some are not confident and others are not sure. But the fact that nobody is very confident just exposes the need that's out there for these types of conversations and implementing the controls and the types of things like a center of excellence that will lead to successful deployments and outcomes with the new data opportunities.